8:30.
Still your last number.
Sorry. Sorry, County Finance Committee meeting to order. Ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
John Duffy. Here. Stacy Hessel. Here. Ron Kinsley.
Here.
John Rickheimer.
Here.
Jeff Speaker.
Let the record indicate we have a quorum and everybody is present at this time. Number 3, pledge allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Number 4, certification compliance open meeting laws.
This meeting is a notice of public and news media as required by section 19.4 of the Wisconsin statute.
Thank you. Number 5 is the meeting agenda. The agenda is set. Move to number 7. Approve the minutes of the previous meeting of May 12th. Oh, sorry. Yeah, public comment. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Linda Zilmer, 902 Holly Lane, Berkeley, Wisconsin, Edgewater property owner. My public comments today, I'll make them during this section, even though they are regarding agenda items. Item number 8, which is the monthly sales tax report that this committee has been receiving in the same format for years and years. In the past, I have suggested that, especially now since the Department of Revenue makes it so easy to do a graph of sales tax collections by industry segment, that this committee get a copy of that. It shows more accurately which segments are contributing proportionally to the sales tax collections. So not always to assume that it's tourism driven. It will give you better information. Number 12, the carbon credit. One thing I've not heard during public comment at the county board or at committee level is that by the county selling their carbon offset credits while they're already complying with their forest certification, it's more or less like a greenwashing. So for instance, if you're a farmer and there's the Environmental Quality Incentive Program or EQIP program, and you're already doing a practice, say you're a rotational grazer, EQIP, the USDA is not going to, Natural Resources Conservation Service is not going to pay a farmer to do a good practice that they're already doing. So I guess that is another one of those ethical dilemmas of, you know, it's raising a cost to consumers for the companies that are buying credits. It's not free money, but yet there is not an increased carbon offset because the county's already doing what it's supposed to. In number 17, the resolution for wage adjustment and retention. I don't see a copy of that available yet, but I think that looking at wages and maybe payments is a good part of the budget process. But first, I think both with taking advantage of having a new administrator and new county board members to take a look at what responsibilities each department has, identify them, what's being done, what maybe is not being done, and then also to update job descriptions so that when there is a pay adjustment or any kind of other bonus that might be in the offering, that it's based on work being done and satisfactorily. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman,
Yes.
I would just like, when you guys approve the meeting minutes under elections, I just saw it read Chair Fitch conducted the election. You see that, Lynn?
We're not on
I'm
7 yet.
not there
Oh,
yet.
I'm sorry.
Number 7 minutes. What were you pointing out, Mr. Schuman?
Oh, under elections, it just says Chair Fitch.
I must taking out.
And
a
above
word.
it says Clerk Fitch.
Yeah. Any other corrections anybody sees?
So there's the current one that's up there. It does say clerk. So that must be an old copy.
Oh, okay, it was in mine.
Yeah, it's been updated.
Thank you.
You betcha.
I move we approve the minutes and as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Duffy, second by Ms. Heslin to approve as presented. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 8, treasurer's report. GD,
Good morning, Mr. Kinsley. How are you?
doing well, thank you. Welcome to our.
Thank you, I am. No, attached, you'll find the monthly report from DOR for the sales tax. That information has been provided and the graph has been updated.
Okay. Is there questions? Anything else you'd like to share?
Not at this time, thank you.
Now, the second half of the taxes are due at the end of July. When do them little postcards normally go off the mail?
That is correct. That is something that I'm actually working on today with ABT Mailcom. So they'll be getting the information and I'm anticipating that they will get out by June 13th.
Thank you. Anybody else have questions? Hearing none. Thank you for your time. Number 9, opioid settlement update.
There's been no updates on the amount of the opioid settlement. We're still the same working number. We did have some paperwork come in last week, just verifying that we were represented by Von Briesen through WCA. As the national administrator is in place now, they're just verifying all that information. We expect to see more information on the payout and timeline in the next 30 days from that national settlement administrator. The only other update is that Counties Association has been working on what is being called the securitization of the settlement amounts for counties. That's the ability to get the money up front rather than taking it over 12 to 16 years that the settlement is identified. So just in rough terms, the first presentation they've given, they're working with Citibank and a couple other finance companies to do this. So just in rough numbers, it looks like the upfront payment that we would get immediately would be 50 to 54%, and then about 20 to 25% over the timeline they talked about. So that roughly comes out to $10,000 a year. You get about $375 upfront, and then about $10,000 a year, and the remaining 20 to 25% you lose, because that would be the cost of securing the upfront money. It's like same principles if you won the lottery and you wanted to not take the period money over time you get up front, you have to give up some of what you want.
But that's in taxes, so that's what they're saying.
What's that?
Don't you usually give up the money because of taxes? So is that what they're doing to us?
No, you're giving up because essentially what they're doing is financing. They're taking on the liability of the
Okay,
company paying them.
got it.
So they're issuing debt and you're losing the cost of them issuing that to pay us.
Should-
Do we have a choice whether to participate in that or not?
Yes. So this was the first, I think it was last week where they rolled out kind of what their initial numbers were. They're still working on it, so it'll be someplace down the road here where the county can opt in to do that.
Any thoughts about which way we should go?
My initial reaction is probably to take the money up front, so you have a chunk of money to do something with. Otherwise, if you take it over all, if you do it up all your settlement over those years, one, there is some risk that those companies may not be paying at the end. It's a small risk, they said. But the other thing is you don't have really enough to do anything with. I think some of the ideas that have been discussed here through the CJCC and public health would need more money up front to really have any impact.
Go the other way. Because we're losing money, the taxpayers are going to have to.
Well, yeah, it depends how you're going to use the money. I mean, you do have a scope that you have to stay within to utilize, and most likely it's going to be on things that you probably aren't doing now. This will be money in addition to what you're already
And once you start doing those, you have to continue that.
Yep.
That's not a good idea.
Yeah, there is something to be said for not squandering it up front and then not having something in following years.
But starting, as you say, if we're gonna have to spend the money on something we're not actually doing now, and have to continue that into the future, we're just adding to our budget problems.
Right. And not so much on the settlement, but there's been the discussion of how to use the money regarding mental health services or treatment programs or additional funding to send people to facilities. There was a request to talk amongst the region a little bit to see if there was interest in doing something regionally. And at this point, my discussions have been pretty cool. Most counties seem to have places already identified within their existing framework where they plan to utilize their settlement monies, like expanding their own drug court operations or plugging it in to serve more people through that need mental health services through their existing programs, additional services in the jail.
There's also reasonable places we could use that money. And you're right, $10,000 a year isn't gonna quite a big hole, but it is $10,000 a year, and we should spend it wisely.
Right. We probably, I should say too, we probably will get the first payment, the first year payment before they have the securitization finalized. So there'd be secure settlement less the first year payment that will come in the next few months.
Unless we don't participate in.
Well, they're not gonna have the ability to participate. The first payments might be made by the national administrator to each county before they have the securitization in place for counties to opt in or out of. So we could see a little money by August potentially. And they don't think they'll have the securitization program ready for counties to participate in by then.
People from other counties, are they anxious to participate or not?
We've talked about it. I can't say for sure whether there's more opting in or not opting in. My guess is there'll be more that opt in because most places want to get their hands on as much money as they can as soon as they can.
One would pretty wise on the foolish sides. So, but the money's going to be here. Let's not deny ourselves part of it. Thank you.
Mr. Schumer,
No, he answered.
very good. Any questions? Hearing none, thank you. Number 10, funds for airport sum of $5,000 for Civil Air Patrol. Discussion and possible action. Last night at Public Works, the Public Works Committee approved $5,000 for the Civil Air Patrol. Go out of the ARPA funds of the airport. It's a different pot. It was approved last night. So it's here in finance to see if you want to approve it, send it to the board, or what your wishes are. Question,
Why do we have to if they approved it and it's coming out of the airport fund?
because it's part of finance.
Okay.
But it would be best to put it on the agenda for precaution.
I'll make that motion to approve.
I'll second it, I have a question.
Motion by Mrs. Hessel, second by Mr. Streeter to approve. Go ahead.
Up on the airport. Is that for the counties? That's for the airport, or the dedicated to the airport?
Yep, so with the ARPA, there's a few different pots of money that the airport is getting additional access to. One was ARPA, one is called CARISA, which is the coronavirus stimulus. It was a set aside strictly for airports within the federal bill. So it's separate money from what the county got that was allocated to each GA, General Aviation Airport, had access to so much. And that was to support the operations of the airport. So kind of the details is that
That's fine, that makes good sense.
yeah, so and actually what this does is it supports operations of the airport, so there'll be that money in the airport budget now in order for the Civil Air Patrol funds to come out.
Money in what budget?
Airport budget,
I don't know what year budget.
It doesn't have to.
this year's budget.
It's not going to continue with next year's.
Nope, Well, the money that was coming into the airport, you actually you have a period of years to get it.
Oh, so as long as it's coming out of that pot, I wouldn't have a problem with it continuing.
Right.
But if we're going to take this coming out of our levy,
No,
So do we have to approve it since it's not county funds? It was something other than county funds that they're using, so we don't have to bring it to the full board, correct?
I don't believe so. I think it's more of just because it's coming out of their budget. You're not levying any additional money or.
Using our ARPA funds or
Using our ARPA
anything,
funds.
so
That's fine. I always like to caution on air, I'd rather let the public know about it than keep it in the dark.
Right.
oh, yeah.
No, I agree, Chairman. I think you could just report that's what you did and it's coming out of a different, not affecting our budget.
Other questions regarding that? Hearing none, number 11, EMS LifeQuest Fund budget. Billing.
I don't see Nate anywhere here, so that must mean that we did not get a updated billing report from LifeQuest. They come about the 8th or 9th of the month. And so if he had a new one, he was gonna bring it in. If you look at and I didn't pull it up, if you look at this month's public safety agenda, the most recent billing report from LifeQuest was in there, which shows all that they billed, but there was no money coming in yet because they had just started. That was the April report. So we'll get the May one maybe within hours. That'll show some revenue coming back in, but everything has been switched over to LifeQuest and they are billing and catching up on the transition time that occurred. And we'll start seeing revenues coming. Revenues have started to come in. We just don't have a report from them yet on that.
I don't remember the name of the other company that had it. How do we finish up with them, or is that already taken care of?
I don't have a report that they're still close. I mean, there's been issues because talking with Nate, because of some of their poor record keeping, there's been double payments they've had to sort out. Where payments come in, but they haven't credited the account. So then another invoice went out and payment was received. So between the treasurer and Nate and Integrity, it was called, they're still sorting that out. So I haven't seen a final report from them from their closeout yet.
Was that Integrity's for bookkeeping?
Yes.
Mr. Schuman?
Andy, how did 21 finish up for EMS ambulance?
I'd have to find out.
Surplus, deficit, I haven't looked at that.
Well, I'm sure there's a deficit. I mean, sure. That's why we have to levy I mean, I don't know if there's a deficit beyond the amount that was paid plus what you levied to support the ambulance. There's an inherent deficit there because your Medicaid, Medicare payments that most of your riders or users have only covers about half the cost of half of the actual cost of providing the service to them. So you've always been in a position of subsidizing that service with the levy.
Anything else anybody have?
One question, I know this will be more appropriate later on when we're putting the budget together. But in the past, we have been charging a different rate for more townships on our border that we also provide ambulance for. And it's a lower rate than what our average taxpayer in Sawyer County is paying. And we've been moving that up to where they're going to be equal. Will that happen this year?
It's a great question.
Okay. I'll wait.
I haven't,
We might not be aware of that.
I wasn't aware of that. There was a different rate. And I haven't had any discussions on that. So we will make a note of that.
Thank you.
Next item was number 12, carbon credit update discussion.
We discussed this at the Land Water Forestry Committee meeting yesterday. See if there are any questions after last month's presentation and discussed if they wanted to move ahead with negotiating an agreement with Blue Source that could come back through the committee and go to the board, or go down a different road, and the committee directed Greg and I to start negotiations with Blue Source to get a contract put in place that could be brought back to the committee then for the full board consideration. Does anybody have any questions?
Are we looking at any other companies? Are we just gonna try the market, see what's out there, or we just take their word for it?
At this point, that's kind of what we discussed yesterday with them, and they said to go ahead and start discussing with Blue Source. I did share with them that some of the questions that have come up are not specific to the 10-year contract and the 40-year monitoring, are not, if we go with any company in this segment, it'll be the same, because that's all based on the carbon registry where the projects are certified. That's where that requirement comes from. But the price will be what the market will be at whoever sells it for them. Any company we work with is going to take them to market, and then the market will set the price for the.
Well, somebody asked about the fee, was that negotiable? I thought he said,
The fee is negotiable. I mean, they have a fee they've provided to us, but that'd be part of the negotiation is to try to bring that down or structure it so it's better.
who's negotiating that?
Guess I am at this point. I mean, have to bring it back to you guys.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
This carbon credit tax, I mean, I'm against it. It's just too new, and I don't think it's something that we really need to get into. I mean, why let people play around with our forests? We're doing a good job with what we got going on now. Never had any problems until this Blue Source wanted to jump in here. I just don't think it's something that we want to go with.
I can appreciate that. I come from the energy business, so my first reaction to anything green is very skeptical. I'm in the natural gas business, so it's a kind of an odds to it. So I have a bias. So my initial thinking when I saw this was, I'll just use term. There always seems to be an angle in it, but I don't know if there is an angle to this. I mean, the whole idea of a credit, what this company does, I mean, the whole idea of it's kind of bizarre, right? I mean, but if you really dig into the green initiative, a lot of it is bizarre. But you have companies out there willing to pay for this. This is a traded market. This is a real market. I work with energy companies that buy these credits from the Chinese market, which aren't the premium credits we're talking about here, but nonetheless, they buy these, they sell green energy, and customers willingly pay more for it. I mean, the whole thing is bizarre. But my thinking is, I'm leaning towards this because I think this is, if the bucket's out there, take the money. My only concern would be, what it's almost like human nature, what's the catch? I think we take advantage of this greenness that's out there and people willing to pay for it. Let's take advantage of it. My only questions would be, is managing the forest and all that kind of stuff. Where might it hinder us there? What are we sacrificing, if anything? If there's a risk there, how big of a risk is that? But these companies they labeled up there, it's a feel good. Yes, consumer prices go up. They're willingly paying for this. So why not take the money? That's where I'm thinking.
And the question that I have is, besides just our forester, can we have other forestry industry people come in? Because the concern that I have been hearing is from other foresters in the area saying that they have major concerns about us doing this. So it'd be nice to hear why they have the concerns. I don't think we want to make bad relationships with the foresters. I know Greg does a good job, but it would be nice to hear from other people besides Greg to see why they're hesitant and why they're not backing any of this programs. That's what I've gotten from at least a dozen foresters.
I would agree with that, in that we have the luxury of seeking references to see if there is something that we're missing here.
How would we do that? Have a public meeting, or who do you contact?
Well, we have a lot of, we have Midwest Forestry, we have Futurewood, there's a lot of the forestry industry right here that we could ask them. And that's just my thought.
Yeah.
That's just an opinion that I had, was to hear from them, whether it's on a public format or they come into the
And
meeting.
why not do that?
Right.
Exactly, I agree.
Yeah, because then at least we've looked at both sides,
Yeah,
and
I
we're
agree.
not ignoring a whole industry.
Shoot.
Yeah, I'm right with these folks. Has Blue Source, are they the only game in town? I mean, I mentioned that at county board. Number two, has Wisconsin counties have an opinion on this? Have other counties, Andy, kind of delved into this? Has Blue Source really been vetted out to where they're the top dog and the most honest, ethical people? That's my concern. And we really haven't done an RFP, so what else is out there?
Yeah, I'll try to answer some of those, but some we have not done an RFP. They are not the only game in town. I think they were the one that other counties at this point have gone with because they're one of the.
They're aggressive.
They're aggressive, but they're also one of the few that have done public forests. A lot of the other ones work on real estate investment trusts or NGO land or that type of thing. So, and I think they are aggressive. The other counties, the Wisconsin County Forest Association has done some work in this area, and they won't recommend anybody, but they did do some work. Once Blue Source came in, they worked with Steigerwald to do some information. Steigerwald's a land services company that actually ended up being now a contractor for Blue Source and some of the other counties doing field work. Steigerwald did a seminar or information for the County Forest Association to the counties about carbon credits and what to look for and companies that you could work with to do this. So I think what you're talking about though is getting some, I know what the County Forest Association, their opinion is. They're supportive of these because it's like Greg would say, it's another truck leaving the forest now. So the County Forest Association likes that part of it. It's another revenue source for counties. But you're talking about private foresters and what their opinion of this kind of arrangement might be. I'm sure their concern is that somehow it's going to affect their ability to how the sales will be run on county land or how it would affect their activities or ability to buy county sales, that type of thing. So probably is a good two-way conversation for them to hear their concerns and then them to learn how it will or will not affect what we do.
When Steigerwald's local also, so you have that resource right in our backyard. They are on 63. So, I mean, there's a lot of people that we could tap into a conversation.
Yes.
The negotiation was 25% is what they wanted. Do we have any way of knowing what other entities have paid? I mean, is that the going market rate for a company like that?
That is the going rate. I can tell you that a county nearby here that negotiated, we were able to get it lower. Not, it was like the first X amount of credits, 25%, the next amount at 20%.
I mean, the guy sounded like he was willing to deal, so there's probably a better deal. He'll probably give you a better deal
Yeah.
than 25%.
Yeah.
The other thing, a question I had, if I understood him correctly in that presentation, and you kind of talked about your other subject, they're trading this. They're incented to get the highest price, which is great because they're getting a percentage of it. They're going to collect the money. So there's a period they're holding that money. I mean, how do we manage that risk? I mean, if they were to, again, I mean, I remember the days of Enron. So I mean,
Right.
as good as they are, they could go under. How do we manage that? Because that's just a risk we're willing to take, that something bad doesn't happen to them while they're holding, they hold it for a day or two and then we don't get that payment.
I will have to find the answer and how that's risk. It's part of the contract.
Okay.
And maybe once we have a contract and there's another attorney that we know about in Madison that deals in this industry that has looked at the other county contracts. So we have the other county contracts too,
Okay.
as a starting point for us. But I think some of that's in the contract.
Because it sounded like they were holding it for a period of time. I don't know how, if they get it, then we get it.
Right? I believe ultimately when you sell the credits, your contract is partly with the buyer. So
Oh, but he made it sound like, but
Yeah.
he's holding the money.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'll have to get you a better answer from that.
All right.
Mr.
And there's no guarantee that they won't assign this right. If they buy this carbon tax from us, they can sell it to somebody else and then somebody else and somebody else. And
Well, that would be
We'll
that would
deal
be
with
the
it,
ultimate. But I don't know the
That's an
ultimate.
exchange.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, it's just gonna be, there's a
The-
market, it's a traded market for it. You can see.
Yeah, Blue Source is not buying their credits. They're just the developer
Broker, yeah.
that's putting the project
Just a
together and
broker.
then they take it to somebody else.
Yeah.
Or take it and they put it out in the market and somebody else actually buys them.
so we don't know who we're dealing with in the end,
It'd be like dealing in a futures market or stock market.
Yeah.
Mr. Streeter.
It was either the first or second presentation that the county board had on this. And I remember distinctly the person saying that Sawyer County is already meeting all of the requirements of good forest management. Greg agreed with this. And no changes were going to be required. So I assume somewhere in the contract, that's going to be included in the contract. So I think it's kudos to our own forest department for being ahead of the game and doing a good job. The other thing that about who ends up owning these credits, at the last meeting, they listed some of the different companies, and Disney World was one of them. And these companies are buying them so they get good public relations, public publicity. And they're buying them and just holding on to them. But at some point, I do suppose they could sell them. If they own it, they can sell it. I don't know, no matter who you deal with, it's no guarantee to stay where we want them.
I don't think we should be concerned with that, but I mean, because if you went directly into the market and wanted to say, I want you to have these credits, and you're doing all the work that Bluestone's doing. I don't think, we don't want to be in that business.
No, I'm not saying we should get in that business. I'm just pointing out that the companies that Bluestone is working with.
Right, Disney may sell it because the market goes up and make a profit on it.
But right now, there were quite a few companies. They're doing it for a good public image.
Correct. And if I understand the market correctly, what Bluestone's offering, like, they're kind of,
It's Blue Source, just so you know, in case you're on public record, it's Blue Source.
what's that called?
Bluestone.
Bluestone.
Think that-
Oh, there's another company called Bluestone.
Yeah,
So
Blue
Blue Source,
Source.
if I understood it correctly, these are the premium credits. So they're kind of like, I think Disney's of the world can promote this even more. We're buying American credits, right? The companies I'm talking about that deal with the natural gas, they're going to the Chinese market because it's cheap. It's cheap, and it's like, who knows where, again, it's just, the whole thing's kind of weird. But I think that's where they're kind of playing too, is that they're selling a premium carbon credit versus the very cheap carbon credits that can be bought in Asia.
And I understand what you say about the whole green thing
Right.
being bizarre. It is. My college degree was actually in science, environmental science, but I'm not a tree hugger.
Thank you.
Yeah, but these companies that Blue Source is working with are very aware that there is a huge green movement in this country. And they're jumping on the bandwagon to promote it and make themselves look good. So for the time being, they're probably going to hang on to it.
Mr. Schuler.
Andy, within our contract with Blue Source, if we do sign that, that'll mandate that we continue our good forestry management, correct?
Yeah, they're gonna have, what's gonna be in the contract isn't gonna be like you can continue to do what you're going to do. It's gonna have the principles of management as far as that we're not going to harvest more than the growth, so we maintain that gap, which creates the credits. And that we have to maintain a certified forest. That's one of the other criteria. We already are SFI certified, and we'll have to maintain that. Which that really is what affects how we manage the forest, because that's in order to have the SFI certification, they kind of outline the things you need to do to maintain that certification.
But we're already doing that, right?
We're already
And
doing
we're gonna maintain that anyway, so it's no big deal. And I agree with Mr. Rickheimer that it is gonna be very helpful that we know what other counties have paid. Okay, so we know what to start with and what leverage we have to keep going with.
And just to
We're
address,
gonna negotiate with them on that percentage.
yeah, we'll negotiate the percentage. Just to address two things, I don't want to lose these, because I think these are important. When I got here, you were already kind of into the process with Blue Source. You had a proposal and had seen the presentation. So we've gone with that. Where I came from, we went with Blue Source. There are other companies that you could take a look at. You're not gonna be able to really do it from a price standpoint, like how much are you gonna get? Because again, they're all gonna take it to the market and sell it to the end buyer. So you'd end up looking more so at their approach or their track record of getting deals put together and sold. And you could take a look at their commission, that might be a negotiable point. So that is something you could decide to do. The other thing that Ms. Zimmer brought up, that is, if you start researching carbon credits, that is coming up because of the counties in Wisconsin that have signed up. There has been a couple news articles out there about, is this really a true credit? Because these counties are already managing their county forests this way. I want to acknowledge that that is out there now. But at the end of the day, it's whether the registry recognizes the developer's proposal and then there's buyers out there for the credits. Whether, beyond that, whether it's legitimate or if it's greenwashing is more of a
Different question.
more philosophical debate for those that want to have that. So,
And I wouldn't want, I don't know how to do that, when I heard him speak, it reminded me a lot of my business, although a different commodity. They seemed pretty, he was a good presenter. I mean, he seemed that they know their stuff. And I saw them providing two different things, the process of what you have to do to line this up and the testing and all that so forth. That's just 3 points. The third point is commission 25%, which may be negotiable. The third, and you said it, and I'm not sure how we can qualify or quantify this. I mean, they're a service company and a trading company. So what is their beat on the market? Because that credit changes as you go forward, right? We could sell the credits today and be, darn it, we should have waited. So, but he is getting the commission on that. But I'm not sure how, maybe this is what you said. What is their track record? How well do they know the market? How do they analyze the market? Maybe he said that and I missed it. What is their market viewpoint? And that's just a view too. I give that all the time on natural gas and I'm wrong 49% of the time, 50% of the time. So I don't know if there's a way, but maybe it's just the track record.
Yep. And if you look into these companies that put these, the developers, they call them, there's different segments. There are some that work in the large acreage and real estate, the large owners of forest land we have right now that are not public. A lot of those are getting into this program because that's just another return to their investors. And there are ones that deal with smaller landholders. And the other one, the other differentiation I would, if you go research, you'll find there's the developers that I would say are more ROI driven. They're looking for profit for themselves and their customers. Then the other ones that are more green based,
What do you think Blue Source fits?
they're in the ROI.
I just had a point of order that we could move on because until we get all sides of the story, we could debate this all meeting. So
It's always, that's a good point, but it's important to.
So if there's,
spit out what we can.
at this point, I have a committee direction to move ahead with Blue Stars from the other committee. There's other direction, I'm not sure how that would come to me, but
just my opinion would be to ask for the foresters in Sarah County to come together as a meeting, just to understand where their hesitancy on the county moving forward with it. I think that we owe them that respect since we get their money.
I'll talk to you after the meeting about some context. I know a couple of these, but
Okay, great.
I can show you names.
Mr. Duffy.
Do we know what other counties are doing? And not only in Wisconsin, but all northern counties, states, Minnesota and Michigan.
I'll just say that in other counties, the only counties I know of that are doing this right now are in Wisconsin. And I think Blue Source maybe answered that during the presentation, that the way Wisconsin runs their county forests and manages them makes an attractive market for them. So I can tell you, like, Bayfield's probably going to be selling their credits by fall. I mean, they're ahead of all the other counties. And then you have Price, Rusk, Lincoln, and
Douglas put a hold on it.
Douglas put a hold on it. The first three they've already signed. They're in the due diligence phase with Blue Source, where they're doing the field work. There's one more. Might be Washburn.
Well, is time important? What time do we have?
We got all, I mean, there's no rush. It's the only, anytime anything's market based is you just don't know what the market's going to do. And the market has been increasing as of late. Beyond the counties, Washington DNR, Michigan DNR have signed some carbon credit agreements for their state lands. Beyond that, that's what I know. I don't, there might be more.
So obviously they're gonna come back with more information. I would think if the foresters are gonna meet, maybe they wanna meet with the land and water committee, it'd be my thought.
Okay.
Moving forward, number 13, grant rating update. Do we have any more information we can share regarding that?
Just, I've been talking to the individual departments. We've got some departments that do a really good job. Public Health has got a grant team and they're working on bringing in an additional staff person through AmeriCorps just for grant writing. Others have identified time issues with being able to find grants and be able to write them. So I've focused on something that you had brought up last meeting about, are there other 8 entities that we could utilize if we see a grant opportunity? So Northwest Regional Planning will contract for grant writing. Indiana Community Action Agency, I have some private individuals. As I'll talk to Tweed about, I'd like to get together with the LCO grant department and see how they run and if there's ways we could contract with them, even if we need grant writing services. The other thing, and I have it, I'm not gonna, to me, it's too expensive, but part of the issue is identifying grants. Generally, departments know the ones that they're, like the sheriff knows when DOJ has a grant available, or Jay knows when the DNR dam grants are available, and those are fairly straightforward. It's finding those other ones that aren't more for nonprofits. So there is a tool for local governments through eCivis. It's basically a big database that you can subscribe to, but that cost is $13,000 a year. So we're gonna see if we can find some cheaper alternatives.
Number 14, budget project out of county police.
Don't have any new updates on that. Person that has been a high cost placement at Winnebago, they have found other arrangements for that individual. I think they'll be able to move them in July, it sounds like, which will be at a lower cost, so we'll be back within the out of county police budget we have already established. So there's no, at this point, there's no new concerns, just the same ones we've had before. Right. If you wanted the Human Services meeting the other night, they're learning about each department, or each program within the department. We focused on that one, so they will tell you though that at any one time in Sawyer County, there's 50-ish people that are in the CSP program, and those are our most at-risk individuals of needing an out-of-county placement, either court-ordered or otherwise, and those are the ones that can be very expensive. So.
Something, Chairman, just one point. Something that Dale can reiterate at Health and Human Services, that because we have such good shelters, emergency shelters, men's and women's facilities, that sometimes they mention that we attract people that need a place to stay, and sometimes behavioral health issues can increase. That was an interesting point he brought. That we do house people. Oh yeah, we're trying to be good people and provide for our citizens, and sometimes put you a little bit at risk.
But there's nothing we can do about it per se, because these are private organizations like Hope House and so forth that may bring in a person, usually female, to Hayward for her protection, get away from a bad situation. That person presents with a serious mental illness or problem. Sawyer County's on the hook, and we can't control who they would bring into the county. It's not something we're doing wrong. It's not anything we're doing wrong, but it's just the way things work.
Now, in that department, there used to be 2 people in there. Has there ever been a 3rd person put in that department?
I'm sorry, which department are you referring to?
The ones that usually refer them to where they have to go. It's still just the 2 people.
Yeah, that's just the 2.
All right.
Sure, there's 2 people.
All right.
We have two primary people, but there's additional staff underneath.
Oh, yeah.
CSPCs.
The Joe and Alicia.
Joan, Alicia, and then Alicia has.
They're the primary decision makers.
Fiddler was talking one time to bring a third person in.
You know, Chairman, it just brings more rationale to the reason why the state and all the counties should fund this facility, not a single county. You know, because we're all, right, Andy? And
Yes.
that's something we should push to the legislatures, that put something together that each county contributes to.
Right.
And they pay it as a whole. Don't leave a small county hanging because they're trying to help people.
Pool it.
Cool.
Well, just have them pay for, I mean, Winnebago, Mendota are already state facilities.
Correct.
So if we're sending people there, the state's billing us at a pretty high rate, which really is out of our control. I mean, it's kind of the lottery, county by county, as to how many, and when people get placed in those facilities. So they should just pay for those facilities to run.
Yes.
I agree 100%. It should be a statewide issue. We need to be careful because of what we learned Tuesday. If the state decides to follow the long-term care model, right now, Sawyer County is paying huge amounts for these mental health placements. If the state follows the long-term care model, that's the number we'll be stuck with forever and ever. So we need, when we talk to our legislators, we need to talk about some other type of equation for deciding what the maximum each county would be charged. And then the state takes, that's one scenario, there are some others. But we have to avoid the, well, we'll take over now, but this is what you're going to pay forever. Because we could end up paying $250 million every year. With no end in sight.
Do we have more than our share of people as compared to other counties? Or not?
The enrollment in the CSP program with the 50-ish individuals is significantly higher than other counties of our size.
Number 15, courthouse expansion budget update.
Not a ton to talk about on the budget. Good news, I guess, it's early in the project, but I believe the initial contingency allocation within the budget was 370-ish thousand. And so that number actually has gone up. So we have created more contingency by some change orders, putting on LP siding rather than the hardy board, and some lighting controls that have been changed, just something in equivalent products.
Generator.
Yeah, still looking at the generator. Instead of adding a whole new generator to the project, using the existing one, if that happens, that will release. That's a significant increase. So there's two issues with the generator. One is we don't think we need it. Two is if we did get it, it would be like a 12-month lead time to get the thing anyway. So we're having them redesign it to just use the one we have, which Tim and the project engineers feel is adequate for the expanded facility. There's not a lot of hours on it as it is. So we're trending in the right direction. So hopefully, if there's no surprises, that we'll keep that contingency as healthy as we can through the project. Other than that, just minor headaches around the building during construction. Every so often, the whole building shakes. And,
Just to wake you up.
yeah, I think the judge has only stopped construction once so far. They were just too noisy during their court proceeding, and they needed them to give them a half hour to get things done. But other than that, Tim and the maintenance department and Mike and IT have had to do a lot of initial work. Even though we have a construction manager who probably told you that they were going to take on everything and make it real easy for the county, there was a number of things up front that we were responsible for, as far as getting IT, the network, fiber, whatnot relocated, getting prepared to demo the veteran service building, relocating some things in the sheriff's department. So those two departments have had to do quite a bit of jumping around here the first month to make sure things are done so Myron can keep on doing their work.
Mr. Schuman.
So a larger increase in contingency funding, indeed, that would lower the gap amount then?
It would. So that's the goal. I mean, we're not going to make any. I don't think there's no decisions forthcoming that are gonna reduce the integrity or quality of the building. But yeah, we're looking for any, they call it value engineering to manage the contingency fund or manage the project so it's not to go over budget.
Number 16, addressing fund gap in Upper Bruni Dam project.
Just emailed Jay to see if he was gonna be able to come down and explain this, because I don't have all the numbers. I'll give you the rough idea though is that the bids came in at $969,000 for the Brene Dam, which was about $400,000 over the estimated budget before it went to bid. There was only one bid received. The recommendation from the engineer, and I should say there, Jay and his the engineer, along with the township, have looked at the budget and they think they can get that down to under 800,000 by the town of Draper is willing to let them volunteer their equipment and manpower to remove the current dam, release the logs or the boards in the current dam, which was almost $100,000 of the project right there. But we only had budgeted 600,000 in capital projects for this. Only budget 600,000 for the project. There is a DNR grant, which is based on the total amount of the project, which is why Jay was going to try to finalize the number that he's comfortable with that this is going to cost, and we can calculate the DNR grant estimate. It will show us our gap, and I apologize, I don't have those numbers with me today. But we do, so we have 600,000 in the capital projects account, or I think it's actually 619 is there now. And we did put 300,000 into the resource development fund at last month's meeting. It was not put there because we knew this was going to happen, but it was to replenish that fund for dam projects. So you do have that fund that you could pull the overage, the amount over budget out of to proceed with the project. The engineer and Jay are both indicating that the project should move ahead because it's unlikely that the price is going to come down if we wait any longer. If we wait, we'll have to do more, probably redesign, rebid in 2 years. We can reapply for the DNR grant, but it's a 2-year cycle for the next one. So we won't be able to do it next year. We'd have to wait till the year after to move ahead. And construction price is probably just going to go up, so you can't really save any money. You'd also have to do a reinspection of the dam because the condition of the dam is not going to change. Dam could break between now and whenever you rebuild it. So the recommendation, although it's over the budgeted amount, is to find the money and move ahead.
I don't see it as an action item. Are you taking an action item in a different committee to make it go ahead?
The only thing the committee yesterday reviewed the bid and referred it here. They approved the bid contingent upon the additional funding being allocated from the finance committee, and then it has to go to the county board as well for the budget amendment. But what did we have?
It's 2 and 4.
How's it going to work with the engineering and then having the town of Draper do work there? Is that kind of, sometimes that's a gray area.
Since it's just the removal, not doing any of the new building, the engineer was fine with that occurring. It would require an amendment to the bid with the contractor that would remove those, because those items are specifically, they itemize the bid. So we'd be taking a couple of those items out of the.
The town of Draper was okay with it?
Yep, Town Draper was at the meeting yesterday and clarified that they were willing to provide the equipment and manpower as a donation to the project. Because it's an important project to the township to maintain the dam and maintain the flowage.
But can we move it to the full board since it's not an action item?
Yeah, because the road. Because we can take action at the board meeting.
Yeah. It would be nice to have a recommendation from this committee though.
project's gotta get done.
Yeah, oh, I know.
Sounds like you're making a motion.
Oh. I think they get a second bid, is it? No, we did a dam project not too long ago. Contractor that was before, I don't know.
I don't know who did this before. I did ask that question and they said this was the most likely bidder that we were going to get. They did extend the bid date as well because they knew that they were not seeing a lot of activity on the project. So they extended the date and contacted other potential bidders and they still only received the one.
Seemed like last time we did a dam, we had a problem with the machinery on top of the dam collapsing or something. I don't recall the details. But that was then, this is now. I guess we move forward. If we take it to the full board can decide what to do. But at least we have an update where it's at. Okay,
I will probably just get it, if you recommend to the board, we'll get a resolution put together firm, as can be numbers in it, and I'll get it to the chairman to submit to the county board.
all right. Number 17, resolution to consider wage adjustment and retained pay. Did you get a chance to get that together?
Yeah, I do. And I just want to, before we even consider the resolution, I just want to tell you what I've been working on with finance and HR. Two things, and you can tell me if you want to look at them or if this is not an area you want to go in. So we've identified a specific, two things, specific positions within our courthouse that we believe are vulnerable. Well, two things. One, some of the areas we have a hard time filling positions because of wage rates, and some of the others that we've looked at are vulnerable just because of competitiveness in the local market. So I don't know how this has been handled here at the county before, if this is something that only at budget time, but it's an ongoing problem. And we wanted to bring a resolution forward to allocate some funds to be able to make some wage adjustments mid-year. This is based on where we ended up last year and the budget projections this year, that we feel that there's money available to do this. And then, so there's some specific positions. A lot of them are, or I would say is the lower end of our wage scale. Bringing those up because that seems to be where the most competitiveness is in the local market. And then we have a second resolution regarding retention pay. And this is just partly recognizing that the cost of living has had some significant increases in the last year. We're calling it retention because it would be a one-time payment to employees, recognizing their service and the current economic conditions, and just trying to keep them interested and motivated to work for the county. Come up with a budget for each, and the retention pay would be based on a tiered basis based on years of service. And utilizing money that was put into the general fund from the 21 budget, surplus in the budget.
Yes.
Could you be more specific? I don't have the resolution on my computer, so you're giving general, but what exactly are we approving?
You would be approving money, allocating money from the general fund.
For how much money?
The retention pay, we have a budget of 121,000, and the wage adjustments for the targeted positions would be 143,000.
So by doing this, are we taking away from the other people, that we give money to, or is this just in our payroll? I mean, so how every year the budget comes out and we're like 50,000 for this group, 50,000 for that group. Are we, like the fair or different entities like that? That's
No,
not affecting.
No, this would be, we put money back into the general fund out of the surplus from 21. This would be pulling that money, some of that money out of there.
Okay,
So it wouldn't affect, you're not pulling it from anybody else.
okay, that's just what I was curious
The
about.
121 retention would be one-time payments this year. The 143, we believe we'll be able to find some of that out of their existing budgets for certain departments. Some don't have that, but it would also increase where we start at for next year. because the wage increases would be put into effect this year and be carried forward into future budget cycles.
Okay.
But before, I guess I can pass around the resolution and get into more details. I looked for policy on this and I didn't find any.
So it's coming out of a surplus. Did we have any other plans of where we would use that? Or did we? And what's it taking away from, if anything?
It's not taking away anything. It just makes it, you're somewhat counting on the reason we had a surplus last year was, yeah. and part of it was, there was some ARPA funds that funded like public health. Part of it was increased sales tax. Part of it was increased stumpage. So some of those things we anticipate carrying on. That's why we're comfortable that the 143 will be able to allocate.
So it may or may not take away from anything depending on what happens in the future.
Right. But I would go back to something that I've discussed before, is that you can't, at some point, you need to compensate the employees adequately to retain them. And if you can't, at some point you might not have the money to retain them, so you might need to start prioritizing which ones you want to retain.
We're not at that stage.
Not as of today.
I was also mentioned that it costs more to rehire than to retain. So, I support your efforts. I just didn't have all the information in front of
Yeah, and literally we were working on this up to 8:15.
me.
I think within the department, this is not an easy thing to bring forward, because once you discuss it, it's out there.
Are we losing people to other things? Like,
Everybody
Where are they
is.
going? Do we know?
Walmart and Quick Trip,
Private
$16
sector.
an hour.
Oh, we have private sector.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's okay.
And I should say too, that we've got some targeted areas. One area we did not include that is an issue as well is ambulance. We've had 4 or 5 positions open there. Seems like the whole year, and they're basic EMTs, BEMTs, and their wage is like $12.60 an hour. Did not include those though, because all of our ambulance costs are put over the levy. So we have to pull money out of the general fund for them as well. And that's just, it's an emergency service, so that goes above our levy cap. That's generally where we want to keep those expenses, is outside of the levy cap. So we did like to include those right now, but we did not because of that. They'll come up for next year's budget cycle.
Chairman, I make a motion to bring this to the full board.
Okay, question regarding that. Do we want to take each individual resolution presently and approve, or just take it to the full board?
My opinion would be to take it to the full board, because they're gonna have opinions no matter what we approve anyway.
Mr. Schuman? Question?
Andy, remind us again, what was the surplus for 21 and what did we do with it?
3 million was the surplus. We allocated at this point 300,000 to the resource development fund, and we replenished the out of county placement budget for human services up to 1.3. There was some money there, so it's not the full 1.3, but we'll just say roughly $1 million went there.
Point of order, we can't have discussion until we have a second. Sorry.
I will second.
So the motion by Ms. Hessel, second by Ms. McMyer to take it to the full board. But you also have to keep in mind, I think Andy's on the right track. If you don't take care of your employees, what do you got? And this is a chance for us to help our employees. I've had a lot of conversations with human services, and they said, we have to do something with these wages. This is a chance to do that. Yes.
In discussion, what are we taking to the full board then?
These
Don't you have a couple
resolutions.
resolutions there in here?
These 2 resolutions.
Yeah,
For the
I
retention pay.
I didn't know if we were gonna go to this point.
Chair.
Yes.
With that 3 million surplus, and we're talking about wages and retention pay, we should use it for that. And I would suggest, I'm just suggesting using it for the gap on the upper Rudy River project. Because that's a must. That dam has to be redone. There's no way getting around that.
Hopefully we get some more grant money for that. Mr. Steve.
How big is the gap now between our wage scale that we have been trying to follow and reality?
It depends on the position. I can't give you across the board. The ones we're targeting with this, we're trying to target the ones we think are the most out of alignment. And that's, I guess, part of the conversation I want to have before we, that is just what the process would be here, because I can tell you that the positions we're targeting with the wage adjustments, we can't afford to do everybody. So we're focusing on the ones we think are the most competitive in the market, or the most out of line with the market. Which will, anytime you do some of that all, there's gonna be some unhappiness with that.
Of course.
But I mean, we're falling more out of line because some of the other area counties we're also recognizing the competitiveness and are making some significant adjustments as well.
Some of our friendly neighboring counties aren't above seeing our employees.
Yeah, we just lost one. We had a resignation yesterday, and that person's going to a neighboring county to take the same position.
We're also having to do this at the school because we're not getting people retained there.
What is can you tell me the total amount of money that we're behind that it would take to bring us up to what we should be on that scale?
I cannot, on the total scale, I think Rose probably has a better number than I would on that right now.
Then I'll just talk to her. sometime.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Yes.
So Andy, the surplus is one-time funding. How are you gonna sustain these wages and going forward? You got a plan for that?
I believe part of the surplus is sustainable.
Okay.
Mainly, I think the sales tax appears as if it's sustainable. And as long as our forestry revenues continue on where they're at, I think that's gonna be sustainable as well.
So the basic EMS employees are not that far out of line then from other counties?
No, we would come
12
down,
something an hour for
we would propose
life-saving people?
a $3 increase to those to get them up closer to,
Oh,
they're like at $12.86 to get them to $15.86, or closer to that 16. But what that does is some of our AEMTs, the advanced EMTs, are at the $16. So you need to, we think the paramedics are closer to the market, so we don't think they need an adjustment, but the Bs and the advanced,
But that's separate. from
that's
this.
separate. We're not gonna propose that until next year's budget, because it would come from the outside the levy cap levy.
So who make this adjustments? You and Rose, or
Yes.
how
And
about a
that's,
union problems with that?
well, the union, we rough negotiated a contract with them for 23 and beyond at some point, but we did include them in the retention pay.
Okay,
There's only one union. that's the sheriff's
Yeah,
department.
just the sheriff.
yeah.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to move it to the full board. All in favor of the motion?
Hi.
All right,
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. That's important information. Number 18, ARPA fund updating process.
Sorry, excuse myself for work. Thank you. Don't spend all the ARPA funds, that's all I'm. Have a good day. Thanks for that.
you bet.
you too.
Mike, could you pull up, I emailed you my administrator's report. Could you pull it up on the screen? And scroll down, there's a section called ARPA. So update on ARPA, just to give you a recap, they have to be allocated by the end of 24 and then spent by the end of 26. This is just some things we talked about before in terms of prioritizing. The county ARPA allocation was 3.216 million. Allocated to date is 1.781. Of the 1.781 that's been allocated, $600,000 is for broadband projects that have not yet been approved. They're still the grant. We partnered up with those providers. They submitted grants. Those grants have not been awarded by the PSC yet. So I would say those are still, that's contingent allocation. So the remaining ARPA funds you have are 1,432,417. part of the direction you gave me was to come back with a little information on how ARPA monies have been spent. I would say looking at other counties, not many made, I think this is just a general comment based on some of the discussions here. I did not find where many allocations were made to community groups or other municipalities. So I'll say like the Civil Air Patrol, there were some exceptions to that where a good number of counties supported housing projects, usually through their housing authority or the food pantries or some type of human service related function. Not a lot though. Some larger counties with sizable ARPA allocations did do a community process, like a grant application to distribute some of their funding. I've seen that in Eau Claire and Marathon. The most popular uses for ARPA, especially in counties our size, were for internal capital expenses, including facility upgrades, technology upgrades like remote meeting technology. Broadband partnerships were very popular, and then COVID staffing related items and infrastructure road projects. There were a handful of counties that I've talked to that use it for personnel costs, creatively, like buying PTO time down or vacation time, because during COVID, a lot of employees couldn't use that time. They have large balances. So those counties used it as an opportunity to use the ARPA dollars related to COVID to reduce that future liability for themselves, which I thought was interesting. Two counties in particular you'd probably be interested in is Burnett and Kewaunee County. Burnett County is getting $3 million total. They're allocating $2 million of theirs towards their new jail project, which they just broke ground on this week. And then the remainder they have allocated to technology upgrades and COVID staffing issues prior, and the remainder is unallocated. And then Kewaunee is also moving ahead with a courthouse jail expansion, and they're $4 million. They're allocating $1.8 million of it towards that project, and the rest is going to broadband. So I know that's something that's been discussed here. If you want to scroll a little further, Mike, and then just to tie this back to the discussion here, just to show you where you are for the courthouse. So the original contract with Myron was the guaranteed contract of 8.618, and then the other costs associated with outfitting the building and design and California Avenue project and closing at 5th Street is 1.452. So your total project budget is just over 10 million. You approved the bond of 8 million. And then when the project went over budget, you approved a resolution authorizing the borrowing of up to $2,071,395 to close that gap. You don't have to do the borrowing, but your primary tools to close that gap are going to be borrowing, either through, depending on when you do it, it would be a state trust fund loan, or if we combined it with other borrowing and it was a large enough issue, you would do a bond issue rather than a trust fund loan. Or you could use funds on hand if you have them, like ARPA or general fund. Like Mr. Schuman pointed out, the $2,071,000 that is the gap. Either you could say it's part of the 8 or part of the 2. I look at it as part of the 2. Part of the 2 is that $300 and some $1,000 contingency fund. So the more we can increase that amount, the less that the $2 million will be when we actually have to close the gap. You're not in a position now where we have to close the gap because this is an 18-month plus project. So you're not going to really need any money until this time next year at the earliest, probably later than that. But I think some of the comments I've heard is to set aside the ARPA for this purpose. You could certainly do that. If that's what you choose. At least it gives yourself options down the road to either use it or borrow for it. There is some merit to borrowing, just because, just like at home, probably you borrow for things you depreciate over time. So I mean, I'd rather see the county borrow for the building project than borrow to put people in out-of-county placement, just from a logical management of money standpoint. When you want to tie your borrowing to the assets that depreciate over the time you use them, in theory. But try to put together the information you're looking for to understand the ARPA balance you have versus the gap in the construction budget.
Yes.
Who gets the interest from the ARPA funds that?
We do. There's not a lot of it.
Yeah.
I think that's really good information you brought forward to us, and it can broaden our horizons. If there's something you haven't thought about, but I'm still leaning to take it to the building project.
And if you want just his opinion,
Yeah.
I would not open it up to a grant process or solicitations from community organizations for it. For lots of reasons. One, just from an administration standpoint, once we start allocating it, even with the ones we've done, we're gonna have to do some work with them to track the money and make sure they spent it. It's actually better because now some of the counties that got rid of their, pushed their money out the door, they did it under, they tried to fill the buckets that ARPA gave them to start with, like broadband infrastructure, and then you have to meet the criteria for broadband. We're able to treat all of ours as lost revenue, which actually lowers the administration, but still, if we provide it to community groups, we'd have to do a lot more reporting and tracking of the money.
I think it's important we have a moratorium on this sort of expenditures. In the next meeting, I see the town of Draper is asking for more money. So once we start this, we're just gonna piss it away and have nothing left.
Right.
So I think we have to put a lid on it and say nothing until we decide what to do.
Shoot.
So to achieve that moratorium on this money, you could make a motion to set aside the ARPA dollars for the building project. Couldn't you?
We could,
And then a year from now, we'd know exactly where the contingency fund is and how much we're gonna need.
Yes.
Andy, is there anybody else that you're getting that wants to tap into the ARPA funds? I mean, out there, just the one from Draper? Is that the last
the
one?
only official request we've gotten is from the town of Draper.
Okay.
Then we got the Civil Air Patrol, the town of Draper. There was just, I think in your area, there was discussion at last month's economic development meeting from the report from the Winter Library.
Yeah.
But I believe they've solved are on the way to solving their issue. That's the only other one. I have
Yeah,
with them.
they solved their issue.
Yes.
The 300,000 for housing funds, that's for Surrey County Housing Authority.
Yep.
That's been allocated, that's. When can they get that?
We're working on that right now. We have the auditors were here this week doing the closeout for 21. So the county, assuming that you were made aware, the town was here. The county has the auditors consulting on that. So we've asked them to give us, we need to get some documentation in place.
You've asked.
We've asked the auditors
Oh, the auditors.
to give us some guidance on what we need to provide to Sawyer County Housing for documentation, so we can disperse the money to them.
What documentation we need to supply to the housing?
Yeah, we
authority?
need to get some, I don't know what yet. We've asked the auditors to tell us what documentation we should be getting from the Sawyer County Housing Authority to validate the project, so we can disperse the funds to them.
Okay.
Because at some point, we're gonna have to report back how we use the money to the treasury. So we want to make sure we have everything we need to report back from those who we disperse to. Because we also have a request from Mosaic for their broadband allocation from last year. Their grant went through last year. They're starting the project. They would like their money as well. So we want to know, we're asking the auditors to help us develop a process or a documentation.
I understand, but prices in construction are doing nothing but going up. And the township is withholding its money until it sees what the county does. We need the money now so we can purchase materials and not bust this budget with the price increases we're facing. So is there any way possible to allocate the money quickly and then backfill the necessary?
Yeah, I'll get a hold of the housing. Maybe there's a way we can sign on a PO with them
Please.
so they can lock in their prices. Because I think we've committed the money. It's not a matter of them getting the money. It's-
And it's just sitting there.
Yep.
Or it could be saving us money.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we want to put a limit on there, on the ARPA funds, to say that we're not spending anymore?
I'd like to see that. What does the rest of the group think?
we can put a moratorium on it. And at the next full county board meeting, somebody's gonna say, hey, we got a great thing going here. We can save a lot of money if we spend it over here. We need to leave our options open. Now, I know that means that somewhere down the road, there's gonna be a project that well, we've already spent the money. So sorry, we don't have any money left for that project. That's just the way the ball bounces. Trying to put a moratorium and only decide what we're gonna spend these monies on. That's something we should do every meeting. Make these decisions all the time. So I'm opposed to it. If you want to do a set aside, that's fine, but a moratorium, I'm not in favor of.
It would eliminate these other places coming here looking for like example of what Draper is doing.
Well, the only other option, you open it up to all these, all of these.
Because we can spend that money wisely and help every taxpayer in the county if we
Yeah.
put it on that building. But I also respect what Dale's saying if something else comes up, so.
Ken, what do you think?
I'm with you.
Well, I'll make a motion that we have a moratorium on spending any of the ARPA funds at the present time. I don't know whether we want to say just for billing purposes only, but at least put a moratorium on spending anymore until we decide what we want to do with the funds.
Motion. You get a second motion?
I'll second.
So motion by Mr. Duffy, second by Mr. Bigmeyer. Sorry.
You'll get it.
To put a moratorium on spending of the ARPA funds presently until. Help me out here.
That's the question I have, until we decide how we want to spend it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be a week from next 2050.
Well, at least what you do, you stop all these people from applying for it, so we have them in here. I mean, worthwhile projects, but without that, we're gonna have every month somebody come in and say, you know, can you help it out in this project? And
It's all à la carte, and I think you're the point about all the taxpayers benefiting by it. Is what we need to do.
yeah,
That's what we need to do. I mean, all the taxpayers are gonna benefit by it. So why wouldn't we do that? Towards the courthouse. renovation.
Mr. Shu.
Oh, I think I heard you say set aside for the courthouse building project, didn't
Yeah.
you? Is that what you rolled in?
No, I did not. I just sort of
Okay.
wrote
I
said it's
So it
down
started that way, then
Yeah.
it was just a stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
which way is.
How do we want to word it? I would say set aside for the building project.
Yeah.
If
That's
that's.
Even better,
Trish.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, it's fine.
I have no problem.
Okay.
What are we arguing about?
It's miscommunication.
Once you read it back to us when you get it, then.
Yeah. Let me figure out how to do this.
So the motion by Mr. Duffy, second.
By Mr. Rickhammer, to put a moratorium on ARPA allocations to reserve funds for courthouse expansion.
For an expansion building project, yeah.
Chairman, in discussion then, that's a finance committee decision. It doesn't have to come to county board right now because we're not allocating. Correct, Andy?
Right.
I can end right here until you actually move the money.
Okay.
Do you need to say a moratorium,
Or just to allocate.
just to allocate?
I would like to take the moratorium word out. But
I
that's
would
not my-
too, I would too, that's,
Allocate's good.
yeah, that means we're gonna do it.
Are you okay with that?
That's fine, sure.
Okay, so the new motion is to, like, by Mr. Duffy to allocate ARPA funds for courthouse expansion building project, correct? To reserve the funds for courthouse.
Yeah.
Good with that? Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. The future agenda items, number 19, future agenda items. Anybody have anything? I think I'd like to have a lot of the finance stuff come through here, even if it's just an update. And we're not dealing with it yet, because I want to keep the committee abreast of what's going on. And there's a lot of the items that aren't going to take any action, but you need to know where we're at with certain things. That's my idea of thinking of it.
Not a future agenda, but just quick update. So like I mentioned, the auditors we don't have an official finance director right now. If you could walk by, Mike Keefe might be in the office today though. He's still hanging on, helping us get through the audit that's happening right now. The auditors were here Monday, Tuesday, they'll be back next week. And then he's kind of phasing out. The new finance director is Mike Markren. He's coming from the school district of Altoona as the business manager. He was in earlier this week. We did an interview for an accounting position. And him and Mike have been communicating and learning. So he'll be up here and I think it's July 3rd is this official first day of July. So
What's his name again?
Mike Markren,
How do you spell the last name?
Markgren. If you're from the area, I believe his family owned the Spooner Bakery for a long time. So he's moving back up to this direction to be closer to family. He's bought a house in town, I believe. Someplace pretty close to Hayward, because he was moving this week.
Chairman, I agree
Yes.
with you that any finance issue would come to this brain trust of people we put together. So you're aware of what's going on.
That's
I
what,
agree.
that's what we tried to do with this agenda. That's what we'll try to move it forward.
Andy and Lynn, I appreciate that. Anything that comes out of committees regarding finance comes here.
Number 20, correspondence reports, conferences. Anything? Hearing none, meeting adjourned. Thank you for your valuable time.
For